Good afternoon, everyone. See if the audio works here. That's good. Thanks. I'm pleased to be here today on behalf of AngloGold Ashanti to speak on my topic. I'll be talking about a few generalizations on exploration portfolios, as well as more specifically about AngloGold's exploration portfolio. I was asked to go through the how to explore, which is a kind of a broad question. And I thought the best way to tackle that was to discuss the portfolio, the stages we go through in exploration, and a quick intro into how to target into areas for exploration. So I'll get right into it. I'm going to speak mainly about gold. Gold is what I've been working on for most of my career, and quite passionate about finding some more. There's some beautiful examples there on the screen of what we really do in exploration, and that's cutting core into gold-bearing rock. So what's the best way to go about doing that? As Mark said this morning, one of the things we need to appreciate when we're exploring is the risks associated with exploration. So I'll go a bit down the line into explaining the risks and explaining the process of exploration. The value chain grows mainly after you've started to drill intersections. So these are the various stages of exploration you can see down at the bottom here. We start from project generation and then go through the stages: reconnaissance, target definition, drill testing, and resource definition, and finally a pre-feasibility. Now, looking at statistics that have been came out of the Center for Exploration Technology in Australia, the probabilities are about 1 in 100 or less for these projects to make it through the pipeline. So to have a reasonable chance of success, you need a fairly large portfolio at the beginning of your reconnaissance stage of several or hundreds of projects, so say 300 projects. And as you move through these stages, those 300 projects are whittled down. So from 300, you cut those down to 120, and then you only really end up drilling 24 of those 300 projects in the end. And out of those drill testing of about 24 projects, 5 of those will go into resource definition. So that's about the ratio as we move through the stages. As well as you go through those stages, the real value is created during the drill testing and the resource definition. You can see the expected value on the left side of that graph, and really that's where the money and the value of that project takes off. Before that, it's fairly low probabilities of success to go through. But as well as that, the cost for those early stage projects are quite low, less than $500,000. And then once you start drilling, nowadays, you're going to spend at least $1 to $10 million just to do the initial drill test, and then move that into several tens of millions to do resource definition and then pre-feasibility. So that's the exploration value pipeline and how it's built. And as you can see, it takes time to do these things. So each of those stages takes 1 to 3 years for that early stage, 2 or 3 in the middle, and then 2 and 4 at the end. So that comes up to about the 10 to 12 years that Mark talked about for the minimum amount of time these days to take a project from an idea and a piece of ground to discovery. So how to explore? Basically, you need to systematically go through your portfolio and apply the best science and the best procedures possible at each of those stages. And if you have good geoscientists and good people doing that work, it'll happen. And if you don't, the probability of success is very low, because each stage has a high risk. You want to maximize that probability to move from one stage to the other. So as a base, you start off with finding the best places in the world. So irrespective of irrespective of anything else, gold is where you find it. So you target the best geological provinces in the world to find gold. We have ways to do that, and I'll quite quickly go through a recipe book type that, or a recipe that you can use to help you decide where those big provinces are. So at the big project generation scale, you have to decide what projects or what provinces where you want to be. And that's reviewing mainly literature, doing some reconnaissance traverses, talking to the government geologists, database reviews, that kind of thing, understanding what the lay of the land is as far as the ground availability and your ability to do work in that country. So that's step one, and then step two is once you've got your ground, you start to do reconnaissance geochemistry, and consisting of surface geochemistry, mapping, and geophysical surveys. Can quite often be helicopter supported because you have to cover large areas of ground quickly. Target definition, this is where you start to bring in the more detailed geophysical surveys and detailed mapping. And this is where you're trying to compile all the detailed information so that you can put a drill hole in the best place to find gold mineralization. After that, once you've decided where to drill, it's a simple matter of getting the rigs on site and going through the procedure of drilling. More intensive drilling, obviously, at the resource definition scale, and you start to initiate some of the early stage studies of social and economic and environmental studies at that time. Of course, the pre-feasibility, you want to really get all the information together, mainly from drilling, to decide where the best grades are and what kind of pit or mine you can build on that particular resource. In this case, we've got the Colosa long section there and the pit in Colombia. So those are the exploration phases, very systematic work, and just a recipe of how to go from one stage to the other. Putting into, as an overlay onto that methodology, when you're looking at a portfolio of these projects, and that portfolio of projects is moving through those specific stages, we need to consider other risk factors. Because of the high risk in exploration in general, there's also an overlay of risk related to country and related to the various terrains we're working in. Some terrains, the risk might be that it's covered and it's much more difficult to explore than an area that's outcropping. In other places, it might be the country risk where the possibility remains that the government could take your project back from the exploration company. So those risks combine to actually help you understand the risk associated with your portfolio. So it's not just a simple, early stage risky, pre-feasibility not risky. You also have to overlay other risk factors onto that portfolio, and it multiplies both the cost and the time and the risk associated with your portfolio. So I'll dive briefly into geology here and try and explain a little bit about exploration models. So the next step in exploration, you've gathered together a portfolio of properties. You understand the risk of that portfolio. The question still is how or where do you explore and what models do you use? How do you understand what you're looking at when you look at your portfolio and the pieces of ground in various places in the world? And the way to do that is to have a good understanding of exploration models. And I'll talk briefly here about the kind of exploration models we use in exploration for gold. This is a paper by Francois Robert and others where he's shown all the various types of model that you could use for exploration for gold deposits. And it's a crustal cross-section with the surface on top, obviously, going down to about 10 kilometers. And each of these deposit types has different characteristics on surface. So you'd look for different things if you're looking for the orogenic deposits. So if you look for these deposits, you'd look for different geochemical syndromes, different geophysical syndromes than looking for these type of deposits. And these deposits also have different characteristics. They have different characteristics in metallurgy. They have different characteristics in zoning. So all gold deposits aren't created equal. And we really use models to help us understand those characteristics a bit more implicitly and to develop ideas of how to drill and how to target further extensions of these kind of ore bodies. This is just an example of this orogenic model. I'm going to talk about two models really quickly because these are the ones that you'll see in the MENA region in general. The most popular things would be orogenic deposits that you may find and reduced intrusion related deposits. Those are the two main models we see in the MENA region. There's a little bit of evidence of epithermal deposits as well. Not too many porphyries known in the MENA region. So in the gold section, I'll talk again orogenic and reduced intrusion quickly. What do they look like? They're basically quartz carbonate veins you'll see in the rocks with their replacements, carbonate alteration, faults that are reverse shear zones, and folds. And you can see there's really three different types depending on the host rock. There's veins that would be hosted in the greenstones and in the sediments, and then other ones in iron formation. So iron formation is a favorable host rock that quite often will increase the grade of a deposit. This is what they look like in pictures. So underground here at the Mother Lode deposit, it's a very long single vein with several flat veins associated with the structure, and it becomes it's very high grade as well. We're talking about 20 to 30 grams of gold per ton in those veins. And then Geita is an iron formation hosted deposit that we own in Tanzania. And you can see the key thing there is actually the host rock is iron formation, and the sulfides and the gold drop out in the more iron-rich layers in that iron formation. So that's why the iron formation hosted ones can be quite interesting. So the recipe book you can use to explore, I mean, these can be found in the literature, and each clan or each type of deposit has a different recipe. And really we look at a regional and a local recipe, and then the manifestations when you actually are drilling these things. So just as an example, the greenstone hosted ones, again, you want a major fault zone. Quite often conglomerates on those fault zones are important. That's a rock type. And the metamorphism being low grade or green schist is important. Bends and splays in those, and domes and porphyry intrusions are important at the local scale. So this is the recipe books that we can use to explore for each of those deposit styles. Reduced intrusion deposit style, similar story. But in this case, the intrusion is very important, and several of these deposits, maybe like Sukari and Fort Knox, would be examples of these intrusion-related deposits where you have veins and stockworks within and around intrusions. And this is what they look like. A couple examples from Alaska and Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan there. Basically sheeted veins within intrusions. And again, they have their own recipe book that you can use to explore for them. So that's one of the ways to understand the various deposit types and explore for them. So now that we know how to explore for them, and you've got your portfolio, I'll give an example of what looks like a good portfolio to me. I started with AngloGold Ashanti only in January, so I was quite impressed when I actually got on the ground and started looking at these various projects around the world. And I've been to most of them now, and very excited about them. Really, we have a global footprint in AngloGold, and reaching from one side of the world to the other. Strong focus in Africa and the MENA region, actually, for budget. And the other very strong focus is in Colombia. We spend a lot of money, almost a third of our budget in Colombia, and the rest is spread around the world. So our best projects really globally that we're looking at the moment, and again, these portfolios change around, and we get excited about one thing one day and excited about something else the other. But again, Colombia, we've had some of our best results with a joint venture company called B2 Gold, and we're drilling a very deep resource on a porphyry style deposit there that we think has a very good chance. And Colombia is definitely a strong part of our portfolio. Focusing in on Africa, really the MENA region and Guinea is where we're having most of our success. And I'll go briefly through a couple of projects we have in Guinea. The Soraya project and the Kun project are both within about 30 kilometers of the Siguri mine. And we're getting exceptional results just in that mining district. So once you're onto a district, they tend to keep giving more and more, and we're having a lot of success around that project in Guinea. As well, I'll speak briefly about our MENA region stuff that we're in joint venture in an alliance with Tani Emirates Resources, and we have a great booth out the front there actually that gives you a lot of detail on their projects, and Phil Newton is going to speak about it tomorrow as well. So to get all the details on the MENA projects, please go to Phil Newton's talk tomorrow. The actual pipeline, if you put it back onto that graph I showed you at the beginning, is a very large, robust ground position is the first thing. You need the real estate, and we've got that, over 72,000 kilometers squared of ground, and operating exploration in 14 countries around the world, either in joint venture, alliance, or 100%. The most exciting ones being Nova Chikero in Colombia, Houtit in Egypt, and then Kun and Soraya in Guinea, and more than 20 more drill targets going. So over 24 targets at the drill testing and better stage. And of course, our major discoveries in the last 10 years that Mark talked about are coming off the right hand of the page. La Colosa, over 20 million ounce deposit in Colombia, and Gromolate, another large gold deposit in Colombia. So our Colombian focus is understandable. Just showing you a couple of the different discoveries that we're working on. This is a deposit or a discovery that we're working on in Guinea called Soraya. And you can see it is a gently dipping ore body with very wide intersections of significant grade. So we're looking at a reasonably sized deposit at shallow depth, plenty of oxide, that's going to have a lot of optionality for the operations in Siguri. So this is about a 10-kilometer long structure as well. So there's upside on top of the actual deposit that we're drilling here. Kun is to the other side of the Siguri operation in Guinea. It's only 20 or 30 kilometers away from the mill. And again, we're having exceptional drilling results, including lots of visible gold and mostly oxide as well to help us supply oxide, higher grade oxide to the plant at Siguri. So those are a couple of the examples of discoveries we're working in the Africa region. And I'm just going to do this as an introduction to Phil's talk later today, or tomorrow, sorry, to introduce people to the Tani Ashanti Alliance in the MENA region, where Anglo has 50% of these projects. And you can see we're active in Egypt, Ethiopia, Djibouti, Eritrea, and Saudi Arabia in the region. And we're working on several discoveries in that region, of which the Houthit or Houdin discovery in the southern part of Egypt there is pretty exciting, and just got back from there last week. This is a long section, so this is the drilling that's been done quite a bit in recent past, and you can see we've had some very high-grade, significant hits in the mineralization along that structure. So finally, the formula for exploration success, this is how I see it: a high-quality portfolio, the right team. This is our guys in Egypt, actually. Success. So that's the portfolio and the formula for success.